Okay, so it's the early hours in the morning, and this one's a bit spontaneous, but I thought would be an interesting subject to discuss. We've all heard the expression "when in Rome." Well, the report I'm going to read out is quite literally "when in Rome." I'm going to read it out; it's not too long, and then just share my thoughts on this because my instinct is it's excessive. I'm just going to say that from the outset. The report's by Jack Guy and Nicola Ruotolo for CNN Travel. US tourists fined $450 for eating and drinking on a Roman fountain. An American visitor to Rome has been fined €450, $450 for eating and drinking. I'm sure that's not an exact conversion, but anyway, probably near enough. For eating and drinking while sitting on the side of a fountain under rules designed to maintain the decorum of the city in the face of over-tourism. The 55-year-old had chosen the edge of the Fontana de Catacumeni, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, settled down for a snack around 1 a.m. Saturday local time, local police told CNN. Officers intervened as the man was intent on drinking and eating on part of the fountain in contravention of rules designed to protect monumental fountains, police said. The fountain was built in 1588 to 1589 by architect and sculptor Giacomo della Porta and was restored in 1997. It is protected by rules first introduced in the 1970s to safeguard historic fountains, statues, and other monuments. Updated rules with a focus on maintaining the environmental decorum of the city have been in place since 2019. Local police said in a statement that they carried out more than 300 checks last weekend, with street patrols enforcing rules, including limits on the volume of music played in bars. That sounds fair enough. I've heard bars in well in my city and in other cities that do definitely have an impact on the atmosphere when they're excessive. The laws also include a ban on street drinking, organising pub crawls, and taking a dip in the city's fountains. Yeah, those ones I totally understand. Police officers can impose fines that even ban people from a certain area for up to 48 hours. Repeat offenders can be banned for up to 60 days. With the decorum rules were introduced, when the decorum rules were introduced, the City Council said they were there to deal with many aspects of city life, with particular attention on respecting the artistic and cultural heritage of the capital. They were also intended to address the symptoms of over-tourism, which has become a buzzword in the Eternal City as it struggles to deal with the sheer number of visitors. Before the coronavirus pandemic, Rome received around 10 million visitors every year. Bear in mind, Rome has a population of about 3 million, so it's about three times its population. There have been multiple recent incidents involving contraventions of the updated laws. In May, border police apprehended a 37-year-old Saudi man at Milan's International Airport after a rented Maserati was driven down Rome's famous Spanish Steps and abandoned. Well, that's clearly reckless. A month later, two US tourists were fined and briefly banned from Rome's city centre after damaging the steps with electric scooters. And that seems to be the end of the report, an abrupt end. Right, so certainly some of those things are no-brainers. I mean, if someone's driving a car, a vehicle down the steps, it's flipping dangerous. Drunken behavior, yeah. Rome's an ancient city. You know, it's 2,700 years old, and naturally, a lot of the buildings are ancient. Unlike cities in Northern Europe, it wasn't heavily blitzed during the war, so a lot of those buildings remain. But still going to say $450 seems excessive. If all he really done was sat down on the edge of the fountain to have a snack, it does seem excessive. Um, Now, of course, the context matters. If he was argumentative, if he was rude, if he had been drinking, I don't know, the report doesn't state that, um, then maybe he didn't help his own case. But I mean, looking at the fountain, it was restored in 1997. It certainly doesn't look particularly fragile. There's no reports of any damage to it. You know, if he littered in the fountain or anything like that, it just seems excessive. Um, and this is the point I would make. Yeah, over tourism's a problem, but a city like Rome, a big part of its economy is tourism. So I think being overly draconian can also have an adverse effect. Now, don't get me wrong, clearly, if there's problems going on, something needs to be done about it. But I've been in Rome. It was a while back, it was 15 years ago, back in 2007. And I have to say, I don't think they treat visitors particularly well. At that time, and maybe things have changed since then, but at that time, I found the public transit system was very poor. I found that most of the businesses I went to were quite rude. They weren't exactly amicable to visitors. I mean, as an example of this, I got a coffee somewhere, and because I hadn't purchased food as well, I sat down at a table outside. Now, because I hadn't purchased food as well, an irate waiter came out and basically in Italian told me to clear off. And I was a bit taken back by it because there was no clear rule saying you can only stay if you've had food as well. But I did buy something. It's not like I wasn't a customer at that venue. So that was just a bit rude. My first day when I arrived, some people sent me in the wrong direction for a laugh to get to the hostel that I was going to. Um, my overall vibe of Rome was it was quite rude. Um, it's a great city, no doubt about it. It's one of the world's great cities, but I don't know if they treat visitors entirely well, based on my experience. And like I say, without tourism, Rome, a big chunk of Rome's economy would be missing. Now, I could say the context matters here. Was he being rude? Was he being confrontational? Was he drunk? So maybe there is more to it, but I don't know. I think this might be a case of um, an overly authoritarian law. I mean, $450 for sitting down. What if he was tired? It just seems excessive, especially if there was no vandalism or littering. If he was littering and if he was being, confrontational or something like that, I wouldn't have much sympathy with him. But I just think this seems a bit excessive. In a way, the report about this, most of the comments were backing the fine and saying, "Oh, when in Rome, and you should obey the rules and so on." But honestly, how many people even know all the rules of their own country? It's all very well saying obey the rules of where you are. And as a general thing, I think people should do their homework when they travel. But I am not a fan of this sort of idea. Well, it's their city, their rules, so they could be as draconian as they want. It's because that will actually put off tourism. I just think it's excessive, basically. And I want to ask any Romans what they think of this. Do you think it is a serious problem in your city that needs to be dealt with rigidly like this? Or do you agree with me that it's excessive? Like I say, if he was being confrontational and if there's more to it, maybe he was drunk, maybe he was littering, I don't know. But it's not even like this particular fountain was one of the ancient ones. It looks quite robust in the picture and it was restored in 1997. I don't know, I just think it sounds harsh. And I think that cities like Rome, Paris, London, they shouldn't take tourists for granted, especially after the pandemic when, the tourist industry was heavily, heavily affected. So, in the case of Rome, it sounds like over tourism is a problem, but it is one of the most visited cities in the world, and I think it would be wrong to take tourism for granted. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. $450, that's a pretty hefty fine. I mean, that's like, what would that be like? That would be like a single airfare actually to many cities in Europe. Um, it's pretty hefty for sitting down at 1 a.m. in the morning. It just seems to me to be excessive. And I appreciate some people might disagree. They might say, "Oh, Nathan, the rules are clear." Are they clear? I mean, it's been 15 years since I've been to Rome. For example, is it clearly signposted that you can't sit on the fountains? If it is, then maybe he was being stubborn. One last thing, people were sort of saying, "Oh, it's always Americans." That isn't true. Actually, in Europe, two other nationalities have a reputation, and one of them, I hate to say it, is my country, Britain's. We have a reputation for bad and entitled behaviour abroad, and the other one is Chinese. In recent years, there's been a lot of issues with Chinese tourists kind of doing as they please in Europe and in other Asian countries. So no, it's not just Americans. Um, but yeah, let me know your thoughts. When it comes to tourism, I'm pretty much of the view it should be mutual respect. Tourist visitors should respect where they're going to, they should do their homework, and of course they should respect local laws. But at the same time, I don't believe in overly draconian laws attacking visitors, targeting visitors. It just seems excessive um, and unnecessary. If there has to be a fine them $50. That would be enough. I think it would be enough to put anyone off. But $450, really? For sitting on the edge of a fountain? It's excessive in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts.